3, 2.
I got everybody pregnant with Barry Katz and semen.
I'm not comfortable with the tone this is taking.
If you're undeniable, you will not be denied.
If you want to be successful in show business, you get yourself a Jew white manager like Barry Katz.
Being a manager is just turning no's into yeses.
Creating holy shit moments. Undeniable.
You're fucking firing me up, Katz.
I love this man.
Is there anything else I should know?
You're on. What? Now I'm on the air.
Barry Katz, back in the house.
Let's do this.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Industry Standard with me, Barry Katz. It's turning out to be one of my favorite things to do each month is answering a bunch of questions that people send me from all over the world about the entertainment business, and hopefully I can answer them with my perspective. I'm just one person, so use as little or as much as you want of the answers to these questions, and hopefully you'll get something out of it. I love this. It's great. And it's fun to see what all of you are thinking out there. If you want to reach me, you can do so at Barry Katz at X, Twitter, or Instagram, or at my website, barrykatz.com. And if you want to see these and other podcasts that I've done from the past or the future, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you just prefer to listen, you can do so on any podcast platform that's out there. So I'm very grateful to all of you. I really am. I think this is an amazing platform that I've been humbled to be a part of for over a decade, and I'm just really grateful for your support. So without further ado, let's answer some questions. All right. This one's from Farley in Houston, Texas. Do you have any tips for recovering from a showcase or audition where you bombed? Do you reach out to the people and apologize for what happened? Thanks, Farley. As I always like to say, you can't always be at your best, even when you're trying to be your best. There's always variables that happen that derail you. And if it's stand-up comedy, you're trying out material. I mean, how many other jobs do you have to learn your profession in front of a group of people watching you and judging you? So, as I've said many times before, and many people before me, one of the people that says it a lot is 4-time Emmy Award winner Lance Crowther. The audience is your writing partner, and you have to understand that you're going in and you're learning along the way. And or if you're doing an audition and there's no direction of how to be, so you have to anticipate the best way to be for the people in the room. And it's almost like you have to be part psychic, part talented. So firstly, everybody's going to have a tough night. Bad things are going to happen. Most people forget about them. And I'll give you the analogy. How many times you've been in an office building and you're late to a meeting or something, and you open a door to go into the meeting and you step in and there's this whole conference room full of people, and it's not your people. It's not your meeting. And you're just standing there like, oh, shit, I'm sorry. And you walk out. And all day long, you're thinking about what a jerk you looked like for going in that room and how embarrassing it was and how awful it was that you did that. But what happens if you're one of the people in the conference room and somebody walks in? How long do you remember it? How long do you think about it? You don't. A lot of times people who go to comedy shows, they can't even remember the people's names that were on the comedy show where everyone killed. You'll be asking your friends, who was on the show? There was this tall guy who was really, really funny, and there was this other person that was smaller that was really great, did jokes about being small. And, well, do you remember their name? No, I just don't remember. So you got to think to yourself that most people have very short memory, and most people who are on the other side give themselves much too much credit for being more memorable than they are. You know, it's fascinating. People give themselves more credit in failure, and they give themselves more fame and more like people thinking about them in failure than they do think about it in success. So my feeling is that obviously if there's somebody who booked you, who put their faith in you, and you didn't do that well, it never hurts to go to the person who's the owner of the club or the manager of the club and just say, look, I'm so sorry. I had a bad night. It won't happen again. Or if you go in an audition and a casting director really put themselves out there to get you in and you don't do well, it never hurts to send a handwritten thank you note saying, thank you so much. I'm sorry I didn't deliver for you the way I know I could have. But to apologize to the audience or anything like that, no apology necessary. To apologize to anything in that sense, no. Just keep working harder and use that time or those moments where things didn't go well for you and use them as a launching pad to kill it the next time. All right, next question from Kevin Michaels in Pasadena, California. Having written, directed, and produced my own independent feature film, how should I go about finding a distributor? And what else should I be doing with my film in order to find an audience and maximize a return on my investment? Great question, Kevin. You know, there's many, many ways to go about this. And there's no right or wrong answer. There never is. Some people make their film and they just put it on their YouTube channel and they promote it that way and they get it out there that way, and that's all they want to do. Some people submit their films to all the festivals and try to get in there and try to get something going from the festivals. Some people try to sell their film to the streamers or the television networks just as a movie of the week. Some people try to sell their films to the film companies, studios like Lionsgate, or so many of them. There's so many different ways to do it. And again, it's just getting out there and getting your package out there and your pitch deck together and your trailer the right way, and make sure your movie is finished to the best of its ability. And you just leave no stone unturned. And it's an enormous amount of work and it's a pain in the ass. But like anything else, to give yourself the best shot of success is to uncover every single area of opportunity there is. Look, if you want a job as an assistant at an agency, Well, you do make your list of the top agencies in the world. Who's number 1? Who's number 2? Who's number 3? Who's number 4? Who's number 27? Find out who the human resource person is. Then figure out how to write them a letter that says it all. You know, the beginning says something about them that's personal to them, something you like about their company. And then the rest talks about you and your experiences, why you want to do this. And at the end, lets them know if given the opportunity, you're going to blow them away. And, you know, what do you think? If you do that for all the agencies, that you're not going to get one? Or if you sit in the lobby of an agency waiting to talk to somebody, you're not going to get a meeting? But then you got to get the meeting, and you got to blow people away when you do that. Just like with your film, when you explore every option, you better be sure that your movie is incredible and undeniable. Because if it's not, it doesn't matter how many opportunities you create for it. You're not going to get there. But first, you got to create as many opportunities out there as possible for people to see your film, to look at the package, and to determine whether they want to buy it or option it or acquire it. So I hope that answers your question. Next question is from Dante in Miami, Florida. Do most of the biggest comedians use writers for their acts? It's a good question. When those acts are working on television shows, whether they be scripted, whether they be talk shows, any kind of thing on television, there's other writers submitting jokes to them that they choose what they want. And sometimes they rewrite the jokes, whatever it might be. You know, Jimmy Fallon does not write all of his jokes on The Tonight Show. If you look at the last 5 people that hosted the Academy Awards or the Grammy Awards, if they were comedians or any kind of award show, there's no way that they wrote all their own jokes. When you go to the Comedy Central roast and you look back at those performances, or recently the Tom Brady roast, there's no way that everybody on that show who is a comedian wrote every single joke of theirs. Now, some might. Some might not want to get any jokes from anybody else. But the process is such that you want to have people come to you and give you things. Now, I will say this, for stand-up, it's much more rare to have people write for comedians. So, like, Chris Rock might have 20 people writing for him when he hosts the Academy Awards. Could have more. But when it comes to his stand-up, it's very rare that he would have somebody writing his act for him in the beginning. But as he gets to more specials and more production, he will have people come in and go over his act and write pieces and do things for him and come up with things. They might not use everything, but they would have that. One of my favorite stories that I hope I don't butcher is Judd Apatow, as a young comedian, Gary Shandling asked him to write some material for him because he was going on the road on a tour. The way I remember the story, which I hope is as accurate as it possibly can be, Judd went to one of the first performances at a theater somewhere, and Gary didn't do any of the jokes, punchlines that Judd had written. And being somebody in the business not that long at the time and probably having a sensitivity level, he wanted to leave, or he was about to leave, or he told Gary he was going to leave because he wasn't needed on the tour because Gary didn't use any of his punchlines. And again, I'm paraphrasing, but Gary said to Judd, "Hey, what are you talking about? I used so many of your premises. Your premises were incredible. They were so original and unique." And Judd said, but you didn't use any of the punchlines. And Gary said, "Listen, I can write the punchlines. I can write hundreds of punchlines and choose which one I want to use. But original premises are almost next to impossible to find. And you did that for me. And that was very valuable." And so I hope that answers your questions. Yes, there's some comedians who never let anybody write for them for their stand-up act. But as things go along, you get bigger, you move forward, you're normally using material that others write for you. Now, I want to say this, as a last point, there's people that I worked with that I never knew anybody to write a joke for them. Dane Cook had probably over 7 hours of material. I never knew any comedian to write a joke for him or give him a tag. They may have, but I never knew it. But there's other people that I work with who shall remain nameless, who used many, many writers. Next question. This one's from Will in Atlanta, Georgia. What was the most challenging part of starting the Boston Comedy Club in New York City? Are there any specific days or times that stand out when you overcame those challenges? Great question. Well, the first challenge was can't help but getting personal here, but I was in Boston. I was married, and was married for 8 months. My wife was 23, and she passed away. And obviously, that was the greatest thing that ever happened in my life. That was so enormously life-changing and life-altering to be able to handle something like that, which I probably didn't handle that well in Boston. And so the first challenge I had was trying to overcome that, and how I overcame that was I just got in my car and I drove to New York City, and I just left Boston and got an apartment, first apartment I looked at on 82nd Street. And then a friend of mine, Eddie Brill, who was a comedian and used to warm up Letterman, he told me that he was leaving his comedy club in Greenwich Village and I should go down there and talk to them. And I set up an appointment. I talked to them and I convinced them that I would do the club upstairs that they had. I would name it the Boston Comedy Club. I would use Boston comedians and New York comedians. And I somehow sold them on the idea of giving me the club with no money down. And they would get the bar and I would get the door. And I somehow made it happen. And I remember, as I probably told more than a few times, that the first comedian that I ever managed in my lifetime as a young 18-year-old came to New York and helped me set up the lights and the sound and get it ready for those first shows. And he hosted, and that was Louis C.K. And I I think the challenges there were the fact that there were really, really huge clubs like the Comedy Cellar, the Village Gate, the Duplex around me. And I had to start something and make it work without any advertising budget. And so what I did was I befriended a lot of the homeless people around Washington Square Park. And I printed out these flyers that said $4 off when another person pays full price, or free admission when another person pays full price. And I color coded them, and I gave them to different people on different street corners. And they would get paid money for each flyer that came in. Because I was more concerned in creating an audience for the young comedians that were working there, like Chappelle and Louis C.K. and Wanda Sykes and Jeff Ross and Tracy Morgan and Jim Breuer and so many others. Is really, really important. You know, you don't want a young person you're working with like Jay Moore to go on for 6 people. And so the challenge was getting the people in. The challenge was competing. And the challenge was putting on great shows that other people weren't putting on. And I decided to rally around young comedians that no one else was really booking that much. Thank God it worked. And those are one of the greatest periods of my life, you know, just being around Greenwich Village and being around all those great comedians, but also navigating the Comedy Cellar to where the late Manny Dorman, the owner, and Noam, his son, and Esty weren't upset at me, and that I could still go in there and sit at that special table up at the Olive Tree Cafe and hang with them and other comics. And I was able to accomplish that and overcome those challenges.
Hey everybody, it's Barry Katz, and I wanted to talk to you about Blueprint for Success. This is a community that I put together during the pandemic to help all artists of every walk of life in the entertainment business. No matter where you are in that part of this journey, it's designed to help you. There are podcasts with people that will inspire you, like Kevin Hart, Judd Apatow, Bill Burr, that you can't find anywhere else but on this program that I've interviewed, to times where we get to talk to executives in the business that you would never have access to tell you what you need to hear and to answer your questions, to all sorts of different videos and master classes designed to help you get to the promised land. That's what the Blueprint for Success is. Doesn't matter whether you want to be a stand-up comedian, a sketch performer, a podcaster, an actor, an actress, director, writer, social media person, whatever you want to be. I've been doing this for 40 years. I've had the honor and been humbled to represent people like Chappelle, Wanda Sykes, Louis C.K., Dane Cook, and probably over 20 other people who went from a studio apartment to being a multi-millionaire and a household name. And I want that for you, and I wanted to take the time with this program to be able to help you on your way there, to get there and to heighten and increase the trajectory of your career. Blueprint for Success is the way to go. I'm proud to be a part of this program, and I'd be proud to have you to be a part of it too.
This next question's from Ruba in Santa Monica, California. How does a 15-minute set turn into an hour-long special? Thanks, Ruba. What I like to do with people working on putting their special together is you work in segments. So you develop and cultivate these 5-minute sets at the clubs until you perfect them. And then that's a 5-minute piece that you have in your arsenal. And then all you got to do is come up with 11 more of those Sounds hard, and it is hard, but you're just working on these different segments throughout your career and throughout the time when you're working on stand-up in the clubs. And you'll notice you keep building up. And once you perfect what you have, you just start the new 5. And you start working on the new 5. And to me, it's not even a situation where you have to do an hour. To me, don't worry about the hour. Don't worry about the 60 minutes. Worry about 54 minutes. I'll explain why. Because the 54 minutes is, by the time you put the opening on your special or your whatever it is, or you're introduced in the comedy club or however you're using this hour, let's just presume you're using it to shoot a special. So your opening credits and your opening thing or opening sketch are probably going to be a minute long. And your credits could be 3 to 5 minutes long. So now when you worry about doing 54 minutes, you're taking 10% of the material off the table that's pressuring you. And you get to focus on the 90% that's the best 90. And you eliminate the material that isn't going to work or that you haven't even written yet. And so it helps you tremendously. Nobody ever thinks that a 54-minute special is in an hour. And you get to have the best special you can have. And you get to do less. And so I think that that's the way to do it, whether you have 15 minutes or you have 5 minutes, is just building those segments. And then once you put all those segments together you could put them on index cards on your wall or however, you can see how certain bits integrate together and you can put them all together. And it's amazing what happens. And as you're on stage, new things come to you as well that you can add to different segments throughout that. So it takes a lot of patience, but if you strategically look at how you can build it 5 minutes at a time, you're going to have it before you know it. Next question from Thomas in Houston, Texas. What is the best way to connect with decision makers to get your project the green light? Thank you, Thomas. The best way to connect with decision makers is always to reach out as much as possible and connect the dots as much as possible. And that works anywhere. I mean, if your car breaks down and you're concerned, let's say, about the cost, and you want to get the cheapest price, and you need, I don't know, let's say you blew your engine, okay? And you have a very specific car and very specific year of the car, model of the car, and that's it. And so you have to get a new engine for the car, and you have to have somebody put in the engine. So what do? You don't reach out to one person and say, listen, how much is it going to cost to put the engine in, and how much is it going to cost for the engine? You go to many different people. And you listen to all the estimates and all the bids. And some people are going to tell you, I can't do that job. Some people will tell you, I can only provide you with the engine, but I can't put it in. Other people will tell you that I can put it in, but I can't provide you with the engine. And so what do? You keep reaching out to people. You keep reaching out to people until you get what you want. And maybe that might not be the best example, but you have to do that in any situation. You got to look at your project as the most challenging thing there is. It could be challenging in the sense that, I don't know, let's say you have You want to commission some kind of a painting. Well, not everybody can do that kind of painting. And there's going to be a lot of people who say no to you until you finally find the right people. In any walk of life, you're going to get a lot of no's. Unfortunately, in the entertainment business and the filmmaking business, it's much more than normal. But when you have a film or a screenplay, there's many ways you can go. You can reach out to producers who have done movies before, who have contacts, and they'll sign on as a producer and help you to get it to where it needs to go, to those contacts and those people. Other times, people just reach out to those people directly. And sometimes those people say, hey, listen, it has to be submitted by an agent or a lawyer or somebody. And then you just got to solve the problem and find the people that will submit it for you at the best possible cost and price for you, or however it is, even if it's no price. But it all comes down to always doing everything you possibly can to make something happen. So you look at all your options and you exhaust them all. And then when you still have 1,000 no's, you figure out another way around it. There's always a way to solve the problem. And it's up to you to figure out how to do it through incredible perseverance and repetition over and over again, reaching out to as many people as you can. Next question is from Mina in Moscow, Russia. And this question starts off with this quote: laughter is the best medicine. You can't overdose, and the refills are free, unquote. What is the origin of laughter? Why are we so drawn to comedy as humans? And what, in your perspective, makes a comedian? Thank you, Mina. The origins of laughter. Sadly, you've stumped me. I don't know the origins of laughter, but knowing that humans and hyenas are probably the only ones that laugh, I would imagine laughter has always been something to relieve tension. Even if you were a caveman chased by a dinosaur back to the cave, I imagine that person could still make a joke and help everybody laugh to relieve the tension of the horror of them almost being killed. So I imagine it's been going on since the beginning of time, because laughter is a way that makes people feel healthy. It heals people. That's why comedy's so successful, because it gives people a chance to just escape, but also in a place that's a safe space where nobody's going to cancel them for what they say or do. It's the only profession in the world where you can say whatever you want to say most of the time, and you're not walking out of the comedy club with a banker's box with a plant on the top of it. So I think we're drawn to comedy because when we're laughing, we're not in pain. I don't know anybody who laughs who's in pain. Laughter takes away the pain. And so to me, in the theme of this question, what makes a comedian, just somebody who is a comedian, is somebody who's willing to take their own pain and turn it into humor, and in turn share it with small groups of people and the world to take the pain away from them. Last question on this round. This one's from Christina in Boston, Massachusetts. What's the number one character trait you think is most important to possess if you want to make it in show business as a huge success? Thanks, Christina. I hope you don't mind me mentioning more than one. The thing about the comedy business is that it doesn't care what you're like behind the stage. It doesn't care what your personality is like with other people. All it cares about is what it sees. So when I look at the qualities that are the most important, naturally in the back of my mind, I'm always going to, well, don't be an asshole. Be nice to everybody. Treat everybody like Mother Teresa and the Pope and the Queen of England. Which I think is highly, highly important. But it's not important to the audience. The audience doesn't know. You know, many people throughout the business had said that Roseanne was very, very difficult on the set. But the country didn't see the difficulty. Maybe she didn't even see the difficulty behind the scenes. But the point is that the world watching didn't. The world saw what they saw. And so I have to look at the quality as what people see, not what is behind the scenes characteristics. So I feel that the number one thing in comedy that you need to be really, really successful is you need like some form of charisma that just is magnetic, that just draws people to you. You walk in a room, you take the room. So whether your material is extraordinary or whether it's not so extraordinary, we've seen many, many comedians become wildly successful that if there was a true serum in our veins, we would say, wow, that person's material is extraordinary. But then other people you look at and you're like, their material isn't really that good. But the crowd loves it. And hundreds of thousands and millions of people come to see them. And it's that magnetism. It's that magnetism, that charisma. I'll even add to that package there because I believe it is a part of it. It's the salesmanship. You're selling yourself. You're selling your brand. You're selling who you are to the world. And the greater the charismatic, magnetic salesman you are, the more you're going to sell and the more successful you are, because the more people come and buy into you and buy your tickets and your merch and your television series on a paid platform and your movies and your books and your Patreon, is having to do with that unbelievable presence combined with the ability to sell yourself like no other. So I think, to me, that's the most important thing that I see. Now, in my mind, in terms of a comedian that becomes huge, who garners enormous respect, because there are comedians that become huge that don't have respect. And so if you're looking for both, then the second part of the answer for me is the premises and the punchlines. To me, if you have extraordinary premises and extraordinary ability to put things together in a way that no one else would ever think of doing it that way, then you're always going to be at the top of the game. And then if you have the magnetism and the charisma to sell it, it's all over. I oftentimes think of this routine that I've shared so many times, and I apologize if I butcher it, but it just says it all to me. Norm Macdonald's first national television appearance on Letterman, he did this routine that was so incredible because it was disguised as just something that seemed regular and ordinary. It was disguised as a premise that seemed so simple, and the punchlines seemed like they were so, you could just see them so easily, as opposed to things that were so hidden. But that's what made him a genius. And the routine was, and I hope I get this right, and for those of you who've heard me talk about this before, advanced apologies, but I've just, I love this piece. And again, I don't claim to impersonate Norm or do anything like that, but I'll try to do my best here. He said something like, I was watching The Dating Game. This is an interesting show. The grand prize on The Dating Game, another person. That's the first line. So when you hear that first line, it just seems like a regular fun line. And he tags it with like, these people must be really cheap or whatever. But if you look at the symbolism behind this, in my mind, and throughout the bit, it's incredible. So I'll just go through the bit with you, and then I'll show you what I mean. And this is what I think makes a special comedian, because he had that original, unique charisma and magnetism and salesmanship and personality. But then he had the material along with that poise and the premises. So the bit was, I was watching The Dating Game. It's a weird show. The grand prize, another person. They always have the contestant, the female contestant, asking one of the people she can't see a question that's laced with sexual innuendo. Bachelor number 2, if I were a popsicle, what would you do to me? Creepy, always this creepy guy. He answers in metaphors as well. The first thing I'd do is I'd pull off your wrapper. The second thing I'd do is I'd grab you by your sticks. Next, I'd press you against the counter till you broke in two. Then I'd put you in the freezer. Eat you later. And so when I look at that piece, 8-year-olds and 80-year-olds would laugh at that piece. There's no swears, there's no nothing. But what he did was he hid some of the most gruesome, dark themes within his piece. Grand prize, another person. Giving another person away. Trafficking. I'd rip your wrapper off. Molestation. I'd grab you by your sticks. Sexual assault. I'd press you against the counter until you broke in two. Murder. I put you in the freezer, deranged murderer, psychologically deranged. And then I'd eat you later, cannibal. But nobody's thinking that when they're looking at the bit or they're hearing the bit. They might on the way home as they're driving home or as they're going to sleep. But to me, Norm was everything. He had the salesmanship, the poise, the charisma, magnetism, and the original premises and the original punchlines that just whether they were hidden and they made you just go and you never knew where he was going, or they were so in front of you, yet the symbolism was incredible. That's what made him special. And to me, the greatest comedians in the world have that. And if you can look at all the top 10 people that are working today that garner the most respect and get the biggest crowds, those are the people who have all of those qualities. And that's it for this version of these questions being answered. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I really love this. Keep sending in your questions, and we'll do this every month. I'm very grateful. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you next time.